Hey! This is my first ever video, but there's been a lot of things that I've wanted to make videos about for quite a while, and I just haven't done it. This one I've been thinking about a lot recently. I'm currently going through a process of trying to sort of get some kind of diagnosis or speak to a medical professional, about mental health and about what's going on. So it's something that I'm dealing with at the moment, and it's something that I think there could be a little bit less stigma about. So basically, the whole idea is self-diagnosing. So I'm very well aware that it's a sort of slippery slope, and it could be dangerous. There's, a lot of cause for people with diagnosed issues, whether they be mental or physical, because for me, like, mental health struggles are, in their own way almost equal to physical health struggles. There's a lot of, difficulty with self-diagnosing. But I do think that there's a lot of prejudice and stigma against those that are struggling with something and have done research and wish to be able to communicate with people as best they can, so they give it a name. I think basically there's two main types of people who would self-diagnose. And I think it's important to think about. I think it's important to have this distinction and basically to just try and show a bit more empathy. I've seen it online from the most supportive people, the most loving communities. They'll be talking about their experience and they'll say, but I would never self-diagnose. And it sort of puts across this light that self-diagnosing inherently makes you bad, or that it's wrong. And I want to be clear about the distinctions between the two. I think that it isn't the way that you should aim to live your life forever, without a diagnosis. But I think it for some people it can be a tool. So I'll get into kind of what I mean. I think there's two types. The first type I think we need to have more empathy for is the type where you're struggling with something, whether it's physical or mental. You're trying to deal with something and it's really difficult. Whether it's, comparatively to other people, to other people's struggles, it's relevant at that point. You're dealing with something and it's hard. You try to communicate to those that you care about or love, and it's difficult because you don't have that diagnosis. You're looking for a diagnosis. You're on the path. You're trying to seek, medical or psychiatric help. You're trying to get on that path. But sometimes diagnoses can take years. Sometimes you don't get diagnosed with something for a very long time, and while you're waiting for that, or while you're trying to find out what it is that's not quite right for you, I think it could be essentially a tool. It's if you've done your research, you match the criteria for certain things, and it's the closest to what you're experiencing. It could be a way to communicate to people. So if you haven't met somebody and you need to, to let them know your boundaries or parameters, it can be an easier way just to say, I have this thing. Nobody will ask you if that's self-diagnosed, and you can communicate easier that way. They will treat you as if you have that, and sometimes that can be really beneficial. It could be supportive. It could be what you need, and you may well get a diagnosis later on down the line. It might be similar, it might be different, but it's just a way of you finding support or being able to communicate in a way that is easier for you. I think that immediately, assuming that that somebody is self-diagnosing for malicious reasons, or to fake it, or to try and be part of a community they're not, I think that can be a little problematic. The second category that I think that there might be is people, maybe it fits into Munchausen, maybe it doesn't, but people who don't believe that they have this disability or illness, people who don't genuinely feel that they do, but they want to do it for clout, they want to do it for interest, to seem special or different. They might, say, they have this disability because they want to appear that way. That's in many ways not okay, because obviously people genuinely struggle with that disability or illness, and it's not fair for them to take resources from those people or imitate those people just for attention or internet fame. But I don't think that's that common. The other issue I have with this is if we immediately judge them and treat them harshly and coldly and are angry, we're missing something, because there's obviously a reason that they believe that in order to appear interesting or appear needed, they have to have a disability. That's obviously, I believe that then they might need some kind of help anyway. They don't have the condition they say they do, but they need support in one way or another. They need, consideration, because, if they don't feel that themselves is good enough and deserving enough for support and love and attention, that's sad. They should be able to feel good in and of themselves without having to have a disability or an illness. And that also needs some kind of empathy and consideration. Is what I believe anyway. I think that there is definitely room for frustration, irritation, obviously depending on the circumstance, and I'm not giving any examples in this. But I don't believe that every single person who self-diagnoses is trying to do it maliciously. So, for my example, I've been struggling for quite a while with different mental health issues, and I've known for quite a while that I experience multiple personalities. I have multiple people who we share a space with. That's not to say I'm self-diagnosing. So I've gone down the route of research. So for a while I was looking at DID, dissociative identity disorder. I was looking at OSDD, otherwise specified dissociative disorders. And because they're on my radar, because I know of them and because I've researched them, sometimes it can be easiest if I'm speaking to somebody for the first time that I would like to be understanding of this topic. I might use it as an example, so I might say I have all the symptoms of, or I experience what I believe to be OSDD. That's not to say I'm self-diagnosing or that I have it, but it's a way of quickly communicating to somebody, this is my experience. I'm in the process of trying to understand better what is happening inside my own head, and that's pretty stressful in and of itself. It's just about having more empathy and trying to understand why a person would say something instead of just jumping down their throat and saying don't self-diagnose. I do understand all the reasons it's not good to self-diagnose, because you can self-diagnose wrong. I don't know what's going on in my head, so if I say to somebody, oh, I have, say for example, dissociative identity disorder, that's probably wrong, and I don't want to imitate or take away from people that do have those disorders, and that's something that I do think is wrong. And people who deliberately impersonate a disability, I think it's definitely wrong, but I think that we have to look at the reasons why they're doing that. instead of immediately being angry. Like, you can think that something's wrong without being angry at the person. It's kind of what I'm trying to portray here. So anyway, I hope that makes sense to people, and that this inane rambling makes at least some bit of sense. But I just wanted to cover it slightly because there's a lot of people who are waiting for a diagnosis, and they might not necessarily have that diagnosis yet, but be sure of something that's wrong with them. I also think that a lot of people go through a large portion of their life without a diagnosis but still struggle, and those people need to be considered. So I hope that can at least maybe be food for thought for some people, just something to consider instead of immediately. I know it's quite, easy and quick to just be like, why on earth would you pretend to have a disability when you don't have one? That's not right. Why would you do that? It's hard to understand. When we don't understand something, sometimes we can be judgmental, and I just think that we need to have a little bit more empathy and to be less judgmental. So that's been it, really. I'm not quite sure how this is going to go, but maybe I'll do some more videos. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense. That's kind of it, really. I know my ramblings don't make much sense to people, but fingers crossed.